Beloved people of God, good morning. Grace and peace to you. Welcome to our Midweek Devotional from Parkwood Presbyterian Church. In this series of devotionals, so to speak, we are taking a look at some of the stories from the Bible that you may have heard parts of or heard referenced, but you probably haven't heard the whole story. So today we are in 1 Samuel in the Hebrew Bible, chapter 8. Now, to fully understand this story, you have to back up a little bit and get some history. So after the escape from Egypt, after wandering in the desert, after each tribe is given their kind of plots of land, there was no one central ruler for the people of Israel. This is what's called the time of the Judges, and it is, you guessed it, usually found in the books of Joshua and the books of Judges. So, starting with 1 Samuel, the people start to get restless. They see the nations around them and they want something more. So this is the story of the first king of Israel, Saul, and how he became king. 1 Samuel chapter 8. When Samuel, the prophet, became old, he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn son was Joel, and the name of his second, Abijah, and they were judges in Beersheba. Yet his sons did not follow in his ways, but turned aside after gain. They took bribes and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah, and said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow in your ways. Appoint for us then a king to govern us, like other nations." But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to govern us." Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them, just as they have done to me from the day I brought them up out of Egypt to this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So also they are doing to you. Now then, listen to their voice, only you shall solemnly warn them, and show them the ways of the king who shall reign over them." So Samuel reported all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them to his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and to run before his chariots. And he will appoint for himself commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and some to plow his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make his implements of war and the equipment of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive orchards and give them to his courtiers. He will take 1/10 of your grain and of your vineyards, and give it to his officers and his courtiers. He will take your male and female slaves and the best of your cattle and donkeys and put them to his work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you shall be his slaves. And in that day you will cry out because of your king, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But the Lord will not answer you in that day." But the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel. They said, "No, but we are determined to have a king over us, so that we also may be like other nations, and that our king may govern us and go out before us and fight our battles." When Samuel had heard all the words of the people, he repeated them in the ears of the Lord. The Lord said to Samuel, "Listen to their voice and set a king over them." Samuel then said to the people of Israel, "Each of you return home." Chapter 9 is when Elijah appoints Saul as the first king of Israel. That is a story for another time. But the interesting thing about this particular story is that in the time of the judges, there was, again, no one central authority for the people of Israel. Folks, if they had disputes or conflicts, they would go out and find one of these judges who were appointed by the elders as wise, helpful people and say to them, "This is our conflict, adjudicate between us." And the judges would then kind of mediate those conflicts. And in many ways, God acted as their king, their only king, their only central authority. So in asking for a king, a man, let's be honest, to rule over them, they said, "We don't want to be responsible anymore for our own faithfulness, for our own discernment, for our own following after God. We want someone to tell us what to do." And that's it. And the warning that Samuel gives to the people absolutely comes true in 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, all the way through the rest of the Old Testament. There are corrupt, greedy, just absolutely horrible kings. There are a couple of good ones in there, and there are a couple of kings who try really hard. But in this moment, God is saying, "I will give you what you want, even if it's not what I think is best for you, but be forewarned that there will be consequences." So the lesson here for us is not necessarily about government, but instead it is a reminder that we are each responsible at the end of the day for our own faith and faithfulness. There is no king to be faithful on our behalf. There is no one person that gets to decide what we do or how we do it. It is instead up to each of us to follow God, to follow Jesus as we are called. Amen.